Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show.
He said he gon' huff and puff and blow my mind up. You meet an island girl, she might Jxxiii wind up.
Welcome to the Deepak Saini Show. I'd like to thank Jxxiii for the intro music. You can find a link to her music in the show description. My guest today is Dr. Dolores Fazzino, nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer. Dolores is a trailblazing thought leader, visionary, and innovator, is revolutionizing the realm of energy healing. As a renowned nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer, she fiercely combines the power of intuition and trust to facilitate profound transformations. Driven by a deep belief in the body's innate wisdom, she guides individuals on a transformative journey, empowering them to tap into their own healing potential. Prepare to be captivated by Dr. Fazzino's unique blend of intuition, energy healing expertise, and unwavering trust to the body's innate ability to heal itself. Welcome, Dolores, and welcome your cat as well to the show.
Thank you, Deepak. And that's Gracie. She's, you know what, it's interesting. She usually doesn't come in on podcasts, so there's must be something special about this one because she's just one of those cats that just is dialed in. So I'm going to just trust that she's here and doing whatever she needs to do.
Yeah. So for those who are only listening audio, just as I was doing the intro, Dolores's cat just kind of walked in. I was going to say, you know, maybe your cat intuitively knows that the one thing that I'm highly allergic to is cats, actually. So maybe she's come to bother me, although we're obviously virtual. But you know, maybe there's some omen there. I don't know.
Oh, you're not a cat person, huh?
I am. You know, it's funny. You know, I'll just digress for a second. So
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not to get into my backstory here. We're going to talk about you today, but you know, when I had all my health challenges earlier in life, I had a whole long laundry list of things that I was allergic to and sensitive to, etc. After I, you know, healed myself, cleaned up my body, etc., and then retested, the only thing that I'm actually still allergic to is cats. It's very strong.
No kidding.
Yeah, like I get runny eyes, stuffed up nose within you know,
Mhm.
15-20 minutes. That being said, though, like when it comes to like big cats, like wild cats, tigers are like my spirit animal. And
Oh, wow.
and I love all sort of big cats. Seen them at the zoo and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a disconnect there. But yeah, cats do actually bother me. So
Oh my goodness. Well, it's virtual, so I don't think you're going to have to
yeah,
worry about
I'll
that.
be okay. I'll be okay. So again, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank
And
you.
you know, very interesting background for sure. And I'd like to start off with asking the question, you know, when we're growing up, you know, people have this, you know, idea of, you know, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's, you know, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, you know, a
Uh-huh.
nurse or a teacher, fireman, police person, whatever. Not many people, you know, go into like, I'm going to be a medical, you know, intuitive energy whisperer, right? So obviously there's some story here. So, you know, how did you get to where you're at today?
Well, you know, Deepak, I think you're absolutely right. Everybody has their story. And mine is pretty unique because, believe it or not, I was on a trajectory to become a concert clarinetist.
Oh, okay.
So in the 11th hour, that pretty much changed when I witnessed a miraculous healing of my father from a chronic condition that he had. And I knew in that moment that my life changed. But, you know, just to back up a little bit, you know, many of us come in with these innate gifts. Okay. We're born with that. And sometimes our families don't know what to do with that. Okay. And of course, we're going through the whole layer of society's norms of what's normal and what's not. Who made that rule up? But anyway, so, you know, your parents or my parents, you know, we were in a household where we weren't allowed to feel. Okay. My mom was a product of an alcoholic household growing up. So anything emotional for her was just, you just ignore it, it'll go away. Now, I was born an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person. So I felt everything at a very deep level without words being expressed. I could just feel. And she would say, well, ignore it, it'll go away. When I ignored it, it got bigger. Because when you ignore something like that, it just grows. And, you know, when you're an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person, that's just how we're wired. And that's what happens. So for me to channel and express my emotion, I dabbled. I started playing the clarinet, and I got very, very good at it. And so that's how I channeled my emotion, basically. And in tandem with that, my dad, back in the mid 60s, he ended up having to have a back surgery, and he ended up getting a hospital-acquired infection with that procedure back in the 1960s. That was almost like a death sentence, really. And so he was ill. I was in second grade at the time. My mom, trying to keep it together with 4 kids under the age of 7, and my dad on his deathbed. I don't think, she was very stoic, and we weren't allowed to cry, because I think if we cried, she would have just lost her stuff. But that was the way she coped. And so, I read between the lines in the energy of, because I knew things were bad, and I really knew things were really bad, but my mom never said anything of it. And just gave the whole persona that everything was just fine when it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? It's like the mixed message, but it was her coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So anyway, my dad did survive that. He was in the hospital for 2 months. He came back looking like a corpse, because he had weighed, before going into the hospital, like about 185 pounds, and he was probably 120. So he just looked horrible. And so he recovered from that. And for 4 years, he was fine. And then in 1970, whenever his immune system got compromised, this whole sequela of events reoccurred. It was like really creepy. It was like, Groundhog Day. It not only happened once, it happened 4 times between 1970 and 19.
Like he'd be hospitalized again?
Yep. For 2 months at a time, be on his deathbed, have to have major surgery, because he would have abscesses growing throughout his abdominal cavity. And they didn't know why this was so until 1975, when the first piece of modern equipment in healthcare for diagnostics came out, the CAT scanner. They put him underneath the CAT scanner, and they were able to determine that where his issues with the infections being stemmed throughout his body was coming from was where he had the original surgery in 1966. So also in 1975, back surgery was in its neophyte stages of development. So the doctor said, well, what we'll have to do is do a spinal fusion. And it's a back surgery where they fuse the bones together, but it was in the neophyte stages of development. It came with a high risk of you would be paralyzed, you could die, or maybe you'd get better, or you wouldn't get better at all. My mom was having nothing to do with it, because my mom at that point, for 10 years, she had been living through hell with this whole sequela of stuff, and Western medicine, she felt, really failed her. So she started looking for alternative stuff. And of course, back in the mid 70s, we didn't have the internet, Google, or whatever. We had like newspapers and stuff. So she found some information in all places, the National Enquirer. I laugh about this because that was like the Google of the day, where the layperson went and got information. That's how information was transferred.
Especially all alternative,
Exactly. Exactly.
And there's some, obviously there's still some fake stuff in there, obviously, but there's also like, the stuff that you couldn't publish anywhere else that is actually legit, just alternative. So anyway, sorry, I digress. Yeah.
That's okay. No. So she ended up reading an article that was a feature article about a man who was a minister from Cairo, Michigan, Reverend Alex Holmes, who had the gift of laying on of hands and, healing abilities. And he was being featured because he was assistive in healing his brother of leukemia. And this was in 1975. And at that time in 1975, Reverend Holmes had been doing this type of work for the last 25 years. So he had been doing it since the 1950s. And my mom was all over this, and she just, my dad, not so much. My dad was the skeptic, and he was like, oh no, only if the surgeon says it's okay. Well, it just so happened that my parents were in the hospital at the time. So my mom, after that conversation, marched right out to the nurse's station where Dr. Surgeon was writing his notes. And she made an announcement to the surgeon saying, I'm thinking about having a spiritual healer come in to assist my husband with his condition. Would that be okay? Surgeon's writing, looks up, doesn't miss a beat, said, sure, that would be fine. So that was like, my mom got the blessing, and she shared that information with my father. My father said, okay, great. Not 10 minutes went by. My mom went back out to the nurse's station, same doctor surgeon sitting there, and made an announcement to, the surgeon saying, my husband agreed to have the spiritual healer come in. The doctor looked up at her and said, what are you talking about? I never agreed to that. So this is where there's like more going on than we could see. And this was being aligned for what I'm going to share with you next. My mom, of course, didn't tell that piece of information to my father.
Of course not. Yeah.
And a month later, Reverend Holmes came to our humble home in Connecticut from Cairo, Michigan. And
sorry, the surgery happened then in that month, the surgery.
No, the surgery did not happen. It was scheduled to happen.
Oh, okay.
Nothing was.
So your father was discharged from
my
the
father was
okay.
discharged. He went home, and a month later, Reverend Holmes came to our home. My siblings, I have a brother and two sisters, and my two grandmothers who were alive at the time, and my parents were there, and Reverend Holmes. And I just remember this man was very humble and very gracious and had the most incredible energy. I could just feel the connection and the love from him that just was, amazing. And he said to my father, he said, my father's name was Joe. He said, Joe, I noticed one of your legs is shorter than the other. Yes, that's true, because my dad had a leg length discrepancy, but I don't know how this man knew this, because my dad was barefoot, had a robe on, had no slippers, no shoes, with the lifts in sight. And he said to him, as my dad was sitting down, put both your feet up. And sure enough, there was like a 1-inch gap right between, the longest and the shortest foot. Said, put your feet down. He started praying over my father. He touched my dad's belly, which is the solar plexus, and the top of his head is crown chakra, said some prayers. And not 2-3 minutes went by. He said, now put both your legs up. And they were both the same length. In that moment, I knew that my life changed forever, that it was my mission and my goal. What I was supposed to be doing, my work in this lifetime, was to help bridge what can be seen and not seen, and bridging the physical with the spiritual. Now, my dad started bawling like a baby, because remember, he was a skeptic and he needed to have evidence that something was actually happening. And it was. More prayers were said over my father for about a half an hour. My father was instructed to go to bed and rest. My dad slept for over 24 hours, which is not unusual when there's massive energy work going on in somebody's field. It's almost like we're getting a huge download of a new program, and it's like a computer needing to get rebooted and adjusted. Our physical body needs to get rebooted and adjusted to the higher vibration. My dad went back a month later to have a repeat CAT scan. There was no evidence of the infection. He never had to have that surgery. He never had to revisit that problem in his lifetime ever again, and he passed away about 11 years ago at the age of 80. So
wow,
yeah,
quite a story.
It's a story. Yeah. That was my initiation, basically. So going into healthcare was what I needed to do and what I did. And it's been an interesting journey, because I knew for what I needed to do, I needed to get all the credentials that I could behind my name, so that they knew that I was legit. And even though I play on the cusp of woo-woo, it's like I have credibility. So that's where I play. And the good news is now is, I've been in healthcare well over 45 years. I can't believe it's been that long. And the thing is, I would say in the last 10 to 12 years, more and more, this is being more readily accepted than it's ever have been. So it's been an uphill battle, but now I'm really enjoying the fruits of my labor. And witnessing the changes that are necessary for us to move forward as a species, but also as as human beings.
Absolutely. Dolores, I've shared this, I don't think with you, but I certainly have in other places before. If you would have asked me 10, 12 years ago about some of this stuff, or like what we're talking about today, my analytical brain, accountant by first profession, etc., I would have been like, I don't know. There's things we don't understand, but I don't know. going through my own journey, not that I had the benefit of some of this type of work, but certainly, opened my eyes to, let's call it the alternative medicine, which, honestly, some of what we call alternative medicine is actually stuff we've done for, 10,000 years or 5,000 years,
Absolutely.
ancient medicine. But
Absolutely.
point being that it's like my mindset is so much more open to these type of things, whether it be, and sometimes it's unquantifiable and sometimes it is quantifiable. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday about somebody who healed themselves of ovarian cancer using Rife frequencies, using a Rife machine, type of thing. So yeah, I'm totally a believer there. So,
and that's amazing. It's amazing, and just witnessing the shift within yourself of just being, just, it's almost like getting out of your own way. You know what I'm saying? It's just like sometimes our mind.
Getting out of your own way, or you kind of said it a little at the very, very beginning of our conversation. That what's the word I'm looking for? That notion or that dogma we have in society, and just getting past that, or what our family, that programming. And I had a guest yesterday. We talked a lot about sort of family programming or intergenerational programming, and sometimes it's just being able to peek over the fence a little bit to what is beyond our own beliefs and our family beliefs type of thing.
Oh, it's so true. It all plays a part in it. And I think, in this moment today, we are more aware of that than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, obviously that was a very pivotal moment in your life, and changed the trajectory of, and in the whole rest of your life and your career and whatnot. What would you say is like the biggest issue that you find with people, why they maybe don't heal themselves from whatever it might be, or why they, they don't get well from whatever, their
Deepak,
issue
that's an interesting question. First of all, I just want to say that I believe that a lot of times people give their power away, their sovereign power, to something outside of themselves, instead of coming within themselves, creating a relationship with themselves, and tapping into that innate wisdom that is there for them. We all have the capability to heal ourselves. I know that's a stretch for some people that are listening or viewing, but it's the truth. Some people say, well, no, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. Well, I invite those people to take a wider stance and look back. Why do you believe that? Why is that, your truth? And maybe go deeper and deeper, because we have been programmed. And I think in the medical profession, I see this quite a bit. I think we probably see this more so there, that people give their power away to the white coat because they know more than I do. Well, you know what? I've been trained in Western medicine, and I'm going to say a couple things that, probably going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm just a true, I am a straight shooter, and this is the truth. It's just like, they don't know all the answers. Trust me. I lived through the whole AIDS, if you want to call it, pandemic back in the 80s, when I was a brand new nurse. I was working in the ICU, and I thought I was very innocent and very trusting. And I thought I thought the medical profession had all the answers, until I worked in the ICU and the protocol changed every single day of what we were doing for these people. And I'm like, oh shit, nobody knows what's going on. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And, I've just took that information and just started, trusting the information that I was getting, and whether or not it was resonating with me. What I mean by resonating, it's like, sometimes you have this sense that something's off. It's like that innate knowledge. I always tell people to trust that, because that's your North Star, your inner guidance system talking to you. If it doesn't feel right, please don't do it. Some people, think, and they talk themselves out of that, it's almost like they're in their body, they feel that, and then all of a sudden they're popping their heads and they talk themselves out of it. And then they live to regret it later. So we have to remember that there is a lot of information out there. Some of it you're going to resonate with, some of it you're not. That's why there's so many different possibilities to explore different aspects of healing, not only Western medicine, but, everything else that's around, if you have the visual of a pie in the center, health and wellness, every slice of that pie, inclusive of Western medicine, is possibilities for you to heal. Now, the gift is like you being able to discern what is the right piece of that pie that you need to take in order to make you complete and whole. It's really that simple. And Deepak, too, it's like for you, it might be maybe a little Western medicine, a little Qigong, and maybe herbal remedies. For me, it might be something completely different. But what the misnomer is in Western medicine is that they tried to put the whole of humanity, which I call this luscious fruit salad of every different kind of fruit you have. And they try to create this fruit salad and make it into an orange by treating everybody the same. You just can't do that. What's going to work for one person may not necessarily work for other people. And then, that's just the physical aspect. Great. But you know what? How people got to that physical aspect or condition that they're experiencing is all the underlying issue. Their beliefs, whether or not they've experienced their emotions or not, or what they did with their emotions, if they stuffed them, whether or not they're connected to their inner knowingness or disconnected, their spirituality aspect, whether or not they have ancestral stuff that's, in their family that's carrying over the beliefs that, that it's like a filter that they're processing information through. So there's all these, and everybody's experience is so unique that got them to that. So it's like, until you look at those things, that's how you get somebody better and heal that and align that for each individual.
Yeah, Dolores, I want to touch on a couple of things. So first off, I think, for the audience, more people need to listen to their intuition.
Absolutely.
Even myself, and I use this example sometimes. I used to take a lot more, again, I'm about, being a centenarian plus and, longevity and all that sort of thing. I used to take a lot of different supplements, and I still have them all in my cabinet, but I'm a little bit more intuitive. Instead of like being so regimented, I have to take my 12 things or some, it used to be like 20 plus, and this at this time. So now it's kind of like, what do I feel like today? What is, there's some of my non-negotiables where it's like, just from a, practicality point of view. And then I was like, yeah, I don't feel like that today. I feel like this today. And just again, more intuition, but just in general. And then the other point, and again, we could talk another conversation just on the limitations of the medical system and how we got to where we're at today. And that's for another time. But just to use your fruit salad analogy, the other thing is, you kind of use it like, Western medical systems boiled it down to an orange, and I think another issue is like, we have the orange doctor and we have the apple doctor and we have the watermelon doctor, and they don't talk to each other and they don't realize that the person is a fruit salad, right? The heart is connected to the kidneys, is connected to our energy, is connected to our brain, is connected to the gut. And we're slowly getting there from I believe from a overall sort of like research point of view, scientific point of view, but at the practical, at the clinical, at the frontline GP level, we are nowhere near that yet. That's just my personal opinion. So.
You know what, Deepak, you are spot on with that. That's absolutely true. Yes, I hold the hope that this is going to go in that direction. I hold the space for that. And you're absolutely true. Getting back to, what you feel like doing, that's important because, and we talk about like prescriptions and stuff like that. Sometimes, I take thyroid medication and I could tell when I need to stop taking it because I'm so dialed into my body that, sometimes taking that dose every day is not the right thing because we are constantly changing and in flux. Your body regenerates itself, changes itself depending on what you do and what you're experiencing. And so that has to play a key into that. But, way prescriptions are written, you need to take one pill once a day, blah, 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 whatever. And that might not be the right thing for the person. So trusting that intuition. There's also other ways to test for that, like kinesiology and muscle testing. And there's tools that can be used for that. When I work with clients and they're on medications, and I reintroduce them to trusting their intuition on things. They say, well, what do you think I should do? I said, no, what do you think you should do? Because this is where we're going to start. You need to start listening to you and your inner wisdom. What I tell you may be something counter to that. If you hear something and you're leaning forward, I would take that as a yes. And if you're like leaning back, that's a no. But the thing is, it's like learning how to have a relationship with your body and yourself. I mean, I always joke about this, but it's true. The longest relationship you're ever going to have in your life is the one you have with yourself. But yet we disassociate ourselves with ourselves and like disconnect from our body, and we do ourselves a huge disservice. And so, knowing yourself, and then when you go to the doctor only spends 15 minutes with you, but you've been living in your Taj Mahal your whole entire life, so the idiosyncrasies of what happens and what's going to work and what's not. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you bring up two things for me. So, I guess number one is, and we don't have to go down this path, but, just your point of, we have the longest relationship we're going to have is with ourselves. And, a whole nother podcast we could do, and just on, people having a better relationship. How many people have unhealthy relationships with themselves?
Oh my God.
If you want to compare it to like, if you were with somebody else, right? So that, well, I just want to put that out there.
Exactly. But it's the truth though. I mean, I think that's a foundational piece to helping people get better.
Yeah. And then the second thing you mentioned about, if a doctor is prescribing something and it's going against your intuition, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Let's assume for the sake that, the doctor had perfect information, right? They had genetic testing on you. They had, all these sorts of everything, because everyone's unique, right? There's no one side, right? All these things are based on the average. And I don't even know what the average is, right? The average is sick people probably. But let's assume for sake of argument, they were completely dialed in. Exactly, that prescription is exactly what you need. If you yourself, if it doesn't feel right to you, and even if you do take it, you're already bringing like a negative energy to taking this thing that, on one hand might exactly be, our hypothetical example here is exactly what you need, is exactly what you want. But if you're coming with the wrong mindset or a relationship to taking this medication, then it's probably gonna be less effective. It's kind of the flip side of the placebo effect in a sense, right?
I think you're onto something, but also, it's about just you just know. It's like almost like I wouldn't say, there's a fine line between having a premonition and then also creating something for yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think there's a real fine line there, because sometimes your gut is saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And it's like, when you go to do it, it's like, you don't have, it's like when you're disconnected from that, and you do it anyway, sometimes you live to regret it. Deepak, we've all been in situations like that. So absolutely. I think
I regret so many things.
Oh my God. So we all have, but I think that's part of like learning and being in the University of Earth, and being getting a PhD and being human. I mean, that's all part of it. And, so it's important to trust that. And I believe there's a fine line. Whatever you focus on, you create. It's a law of attraction. So the thing is that, are you operating from a state of being in fear, or just, like, all right, or neutrality, where it's just like, this doesn't feel right, I'm just going to bypass it and not do it. Or just, you focus on the fear. You know what I'm saying? That's where the fine line is. It's like, where's the drive coming from, like a neutral state or a fear-based state, or even a love-based state?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
So Dolores, a couple quick questions before we wrap it up for today. So again, and we've obviously been talking a lot of health related things here. This isn't a health specific podcast per se, but I always like to ask my guests, like, what does your health routine, your morning routine, et cetera? What does that look like for you?
Well, I like to sleep. I think rest is important. I, have the liberty of having my own schedule, and I am more of a evening person than a morning person. So I like to, sleep in until I pretty much wake up naturally. And then, I get up and, drink a Google of water and, just hydrate and stuff like that. And I just kind of, start my day slowly, maybe drink a cup of coffee, sit on the couch and just kind of maybe do some meditation and reflecting and connecting. I call it having a meeting with my higher self or my boardroom. The CEO of me I'm meeting with. So
Right.
just to find out, just to check in and see what the day is going to be. And, just setting the tone for the day, basically, because I feel that when you do that, things run smoother for me, at least. And, I like to, I really got into the habit of cooking for myself and, following my intuition of what I need, what I would like to make and stuff like that. You'd be surprised. It's just like I get a download in the middle of the day. It's like, this would be good to have for dinner. I would get this information and I will make it. And it was just spectacular. So it's just like listening to self and just being guided by that instead of having a laundry list of things to do. Yes, there is a laundry list of things to do. What I usually like to do is just write it all out and not have a time stamp on it that this has to be done by a certain day. Yes, some things probably are a little more urgent, but just when you're in the flow, it's like that list gets done like that instead of having to force something happen. If you're not feeling like doing something on the list, don't do it, because there'll be a time when you'll be aligned with that and it'll go like really quick. Now, the caveat is like when you have other people involved with some of these
Yes,
projects.
of course.
So it's like, all right. So it kind of gives you examples of maybe the things that you need to learn about yourself in order to, be more in alignment with that instead of it being like a, something that pushes your buttons.
Yeah.
So
Hey, let me ask you this question then. If you could go back to your 20-year-old self or some period previously and give yourself some advice, kind of the health and wellness related sort of train of thought, what advice would you give to your younger self?
What advice would I give to my younger self? Oh, wow. I'm going to say more so in my 30s and 40s, it's like, don't stop walking. Because once I stopped walking, that's when things got a little kind of dicey. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah. Homo sapiens, we were meant to move, meant to walk.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So movement is really important because I was doing a lot of that in my 20s and, partial 30s, but later 30s and 40s, it was just like something just shift, So yeah, I would definitely say more movement.
Yeah, I love that. Again, I think high intensity has a place, strength training obviously has a place, balance work, but just a lot of low level movement, and that's usually just walking. I think is key for I mean, obviously like again, use that whole circle, right? There's all parts of our health, and like movement is just one piece of that
Yep.
pie, but and then there's a lot of little slivers in that little piece of movement pie, but I think that's one of the big lever that we can pull is just doing more walking. So I love that.
Absolutely.
I wanted to share you have a free gift for the listeners. It's
I do.
yeah, being in the present moment, a guided meditation to be right here, right now. And we're gonna the URL is a bit long, so I won't read it here, but it'll be in the show notes. It'll be in the description or wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. Maybe like really quick, what can people expect from this guided meditation?
Thanks, Deepak, for asking. So many of us live outside of the present moment. We're either in our head thinking about tomorrow, contemplating yesterday, and we're not in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, this is where all the magic happens. This is where you're able to tune into your inner wisdom, feel your emotions, but also be more aligned and more present in your world. So this meditation is a very short meditation, but it grounds you into your body, so you will feel a difference. It's almost like you feel like you landed. And a lot of people have loved this, and it's very short, it's very doable. I guide you through everything you need to know. And, if you can make that part of your practice in the morning, I know it'll change your life.
Awesome. So everyone, please check it out. Click on the link in the description of the show notes and then give it a roll. So Dolores, what's maybe one last words of wisdom or golden nugget you'd like to leave the audience with today?
I feel, and I want everybody to know, that we're all on a path, we're all learning, and to be kind to yourself, because so many times we are just not that. So just be kind to yourself, give yourself love, compassion, value, and respect, because you are worth it.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's perfect send off for today's show. Dolores, very appreciative of you being on the show today. Thank you very much. It's been fantastic having our conversation. I'm sure we'll have many in the future, but for our round one, that was fantastic. So thank you for being on the Deepak Saini show.
Thank you, Deepak, and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Same to you. So I'm going to throw it back to Jxxiii. He's going to guide us out with some music. And again, thank you for listening to the Deepak Saini show. Exceptional results for the exceptional you. Take care.
Podcast produced by the Minted Green Company,